So following the Kendrick Lamar halftime show and the Madam Joyce debate, blah, 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 she's a Black American, and she basically took to socials to say, what is Black British culture? And she was very specific in saying, what is Black British culture outside African cultural influences and Caribbean cultural influences?
This comment is absolute facts, and one of the things that I've recognized over the years is that whenever I come upon Black British content, specifically in a podcast form, and they are talking about culture, they are never talking about their own. And I'm not talking about African culture. I'm not talking about Caribbean or West Indian culture. I am talking about Black British culture. It always seems that the conversation around Black Americans is always in everybody else's mouth. And I wish folks would take the time to really celebrate what it is that they've built. Because I've been traveling to the UK for the past 16 years. My sister-in-law is actually an Inuit. Yes, I have beans and toast brethren and nieces. So I've gotten to experience multi-ethnic communities in London. And wish that y'all spent more mic time on yourselves. Yeah, you can talk about Nigeria, but that is not your home. That is your homeland. You can talk about Jamaica, but that is not your home. That is your homeland. And I'm starting to believe that the reason why you all don't is because you all are projecting that what it is that we have that is Black and American is ours. But y'all don't have an actual Black British culture, do you? What you have is bits and pieces of your homeland and what you're trying to cling to while speaking in a very pale patois, shoving it all into a mangled shepherd's pie and trying to convince the world that you know who you are, but we don't.
So she's like, because she stressed also it's very important, this cross-cultural conversation so that we understand each other better and strengthen numbers as always. So she's coming in the name of peace, but obviously she's had backlash and criticism. And she said the amount of criticism she had, in amongst that, there was a few people that actually took the time to say, actually, this is what we call British Black culture. So she's been kind of set up as an enemy. She's been presented as an enemy. She's come across as an enemy. However, the question in there is something to explore. What is British Black culture outside of African and Caribbean influences?
You can't take it outside of it.
That.
The question's impossible. And I think she's just being, as some of these intellectuals are, just being a bit facetious with her question. Like, oh, what is it? Like, you don't know what it is. You've been coming back and forth. You've literally lived in it. It's in your family and you're saying you don't know what it is. That's ridiculous as far as I'm concerned.
It's a bit rude, isn't it?
It's a bit rude. And I'm just like, I'm over the TikTok essays of like, I'm so done. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, we exist. We're not going anywhere, and we're going to talk on your ting because you're doing the ting. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
What the hell?
Seriously.
Yes.
Like,
You know what?
love that, honestly.
I'm tired of the Americans. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, in terms of like they act like they're the only Black people in the world. There are Black people outside of America. There's so many Black people outside of America.
The majority of us
Do you know
are
what I mean?
outside of
Like,
America.
There's so many of us outside of America, and we have a culture. You can't ask what is British culture outside of Africa and African and Caribbean, because essentially that is what it is. That is who we are. That's our culture. We've merged it together, and we have you can't I can't even answer that question. When I was thinking, what is it outside? It is African and Caribbean. That is literally what it is. And we've merged it, we've built it, we've got our own slang. I feel like our experience is so unique to anyone else's because most of us are like first generation here. So we know where we've come, where our parents have come from, but we also have it's fused in with the British culture. So you can't you can't separate the two. It is what it is type thing. But the Americans, it's just there are other Black people apart from you guys.
Yeah.
I beg.
For me, everything you said, not so much to hate on Americans, but I hate.
I love you guys.
Yeah.
You
But
guys are
I hate that type of conversation. I definitely hear you, because the struggle is that this is why Black British culture, you cannot separate it from the African and the Caribbean experience. You cannot do it, because unlike Americans, Black British people have got a second home. The majority of us have got an African or a Caribbean place to go home, because like you said, we're first generation, right? The Americans, because they've been there for so long and haven't been anywhere else, that's their whole existence, isn't it? You know, all of their culture comes from that. Whereas our culture, they probably don't even recognise the African culture that they have. And they probably don't even recognise the Caribbean influence that they've had too. You know?
Yeah.
That's my thought on it. But we, as Black British people, it's a beautiful melting pot of the contrast in the communities, and we've come here and we've made it our own. And to think that we don't have slang, we don't talk like how someone up in Manchester talks.
Precisely.
We don't talk how the Liverpudlian talk. It's
All other
different.
parts of
We don't even talk like how
London.
all London talk.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
It's different from place to place. We have our own cultures.
Infuriating. So like, what are you talking about?
And then we're also infused with other people as well, like other immigrants. There's that infusion here. So it's just to think that we don't have a culture, or to frame it in like, oh no, I just want to know. You know though, because you've got nieces and I'm sure you see it. You're trying to tell me you don't see it.
She does. What Americans, and they're all up in our comments, especially on anything that goes out about Madam Joyce, they're all there being like, you guys can't talk on us. We can, because actually your culture has been infused in our culture because we
Yes.
were one of your biggest exports. So all of your programs became our programs as well. That shaped us, as well as our home countries as well. It's all a melting pot. And it's a different type of experience that we have here. We have our own music.
Yes.
And if you guys didn't know that, we've had youth subcultures here since we came here from the 40s. So there's so many different waves. You have ska, you have jungle. There are so many
Lovers
different
rock,
influences.
grime.
Even the fact that you guys now have our UK drill as your drill.
Yep.
That's a part of Black British culture. So you just have to watch our media more, and you'll hear how we talk.
And
a North Londoner ain't the same as a South Londoner. We speak differently, and there are different slang words, and there are some crossover slang words as well. Which is the same as you guys with the West Coast and the East Coast.
Yeah.
But actually more similar, because you guys do have African influences within your culture as well. So it's the same. We're all a melting pot, and that's what is called the diaspora.
Yes.
You can speak to French people, they have the same thing, and they are still African French folk. Like, we're all together in this, really.
And it's exactly what... Sorry, go ahead.
Go.
I was just going to say, it's exactly what you said about what they can and can't see. We have been fed so much more than they have been fed about our experiences. So they don't understand. Like, they might think it's all Top Boy. It's not all Top Boy. It's not all Supercell. We don't all speak in that way. Just explore a little bit more. Open your eyes and explore a little bit more.
I think these are the conversations that need to be had. I didn't take her... I mean, she could be just trying to finesse us and be like outside of African and Caribbean. And I think, I think
you're over intellectualizing it. You think you're being smart and funny and clever.
It's a question to ask, because actually, if you think there's something unique, we're telling you there's not. If you think there's something we can separate, we're telling you there's not. That you have your answer now. So if you really thought that, actually, because she made a point to say that her sister-in-law, I'm not even going to speak for her. I don't know where her mindset is. I'm not going to speak for her. But as everyone has said, you can't separate these things because it's all a melting pot of what it is. I really enjoy these conversations, no matter how heated and annoying it can be, because it is getting... Once you guys understand how we exist and how we live, and you're not the center of the universe, and there are blacks outside of America, then we can look at how we connect and move forward. Because with African countries and Caribbean countries welcoming American cousins and family over the year of return and getting your passports and getting your citizenships, we are going to have to understand how to coexist and understand a new evolution of what global black means. How about that? Let's look at what does global black look like. United States of globalness, global blackness, whatever the fuck we want to call it. That's what we need to do. So these conversations are going to have to keep coming. I think Keith Lee, the food reviewer, he's over here from America, and apparently in some of his comments, Americans are pissed off that he's not... They're saying like, where's the British food that you're eating? Because he's enjoying Trinidadian food and he's going around all the restaurants. And
fuck off! Because he does that. He does that in America. I've seen him.
No. He has had British food though.
Yeah,
he has.
But there's all these
But about that particular comment, he does that in America. He doesn't only eat like whatever, he doesn't only eat soul food. And even things like even what is American food. But if you think about that, it's the influence from the Africans. That's what
and other communities
and other communities. But it is the influence from that. But because they want to separate themselves so much from that, where do you think this shit comes
from? And I think
from?
there's a misunderstanding to what they don't understand that actually they don't understand that we have our own version of soul food. That, and though we call it, we might say it's African food or Nigerian food, Ghanaian food, Caribbean food, Canadian food, and traditional dishes. We have soul food over here. Soul food isn't exclusive to Americans. We just don't
call
call
something
it soul
different.
food. But again, it's about education. If you haven't had these conversations, you're going to ask these questions.
Sometimes I'm gonna.
But the thing is, with her, she's been going back and forth for 16 years.
She does.
So I
That's why
can't,
you're
like,
asking, yeah.
what education? You've been here. And if you haven't seen it, that's on you.
And again-
that's also on you. Do you know what I mean? So, no, I'm
It's
just
the
not.
wording.
Yeah, I'm
and
not
telling us not
feeling
to
it.
speak on American culture is impossible.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's not
But they
going
have
to
to,
happen.
it's impossible. It's
annoying.
It's a global domination.
I think they think that we're uppity because of our accents. That's what I think.
I don't even
But
understand
not
that.
not all of them, I should say. But these people that do these, particularly these TikTok and Instagram essays, yeah, they get on my nerves. Like, do you know what I mean? I think that they think that we're uppity. That's
Yeah.
because of our
Because we speak
accents.
standard English.
Yeah, because the way it's marketed to them, that means that you're well educated, you've got privilege in some sort of way. That's how it's been marketed.
understand our
Britishness
hood.
has
They
been
don't-
They
marketed
understand
that
our
way,
way.
so they can't see the difference.
And they don't
Do you know what I mean?
understand.
They don't understand the
They don't
Yeah.
understand that we too experience racism and prejudice in
Maybe
this country.
not
we're
in
not
the same way,
not on the same
not
scale,
always to the same extent.
not to the same scale, certainly.
Yeah.
But then that is because we are so much smaller than you in this country. You know, you could.
And we haven't been here that long.
We haven't precisely.
That's
You
it,
know?
really don't
It's
have
that
the same-
part.
But also, I do think that there is something in the way we export our Black British culture around the globe that isn't very good. Not just to piggyback on wireless. Now,
God.
this is their 20th year.
Yes.
20 years. And you have Drake headlining, and you don't even have Black British artists up there in bold writing like you're going to even have a Stormzy or a Dave or a Miss Dynamite.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
no celebration of our culture.
Yeah.
So then people think we don't have one.
And I think and it's definitely, as you're saying, the disrespect of us over here, which then causes this backlash when black British talent goes, or Black UK talent goes over to America to find success. Because over here, there is a conversation to be had with how the establishment undermines us in all facets of the industries that we're trying to make way in. We don't make the same amount of money that Americans do. We don't make the same headway. We don't have ownership. We don't have generational wealth in the same way certain generations of Black Americans do. We have a different existence, and the racism is more insipid over here. Like, you guys kind of like know your enemy. Our enemy, it smiles in our faces and says, "Oh,
it's wireless.
it's a different thing in here. The establishment is more vindictive, evil, and covert of what they do to us over here.
I think that's a great example of it, actually, wireless, because it is like, come on now, like, what are you actually saying? You've got 3 days and you can't name one British act.
Not
like,
one.
what the heck?
yeah,
Like
That is
we're
like
not-
headliner
like
or
we're
the
not on an
second. That's
international
crazy.
selling
And then
scale.
to put them together as Mandem.
As Mandem. Do you know how offensive that is?
You
I'm
can't
so
even,
mad
they shouldn't even
about
be
that.
able to use that term.
No
That's
one
what
should even
I'm
perform.
concerned.
But on that
Like,
note,
out of order.
Glastonbury would never do that.
And that
So
is
look at that.
what I
Glastonbury would
said.
look, Glastonbury, when you had,
Thank you.
when they started to let Black artists headline, the way that you had other white artists like Oasis, namely, backlashing and cussing when Black American artists were allowed to perform at Glastonbury. They could never. But our culture, we don't own or have ownership over here. Wireless is not run by Black folks.
Yeah.
And they're booking and dictating how our culture runs. And this is what they're doing.
But people are out here buying tickets.
And people are going to buy
they will.
tickets.
But it's all of those things. It's like, where is the people power in being
Where's
like,
the pride in our
hang on,
culture?
where's our culture on this lineup?
Yeah.
Like, actually, no, this is 20 years. This is a big monumental thing. This is one of the only, or the biggest kind of Black facing festival.
It is.
And the fact that you can have a Canadian who lost one of the biggest rap battles and he's the headliner with the Mandem is absolutely ludicrous.
And you think it's clever marketing. You're like, oh yeah, we did so well there.
crazy,
We
Will.
did so well.
It's crazy, Will.
It's
Not to
crazy.
even take sides of like whatever you like Drake, you don't. You like Kendrick, you don't. Even the levels of what Kendrick was saying versus now, you're like, yeah, we're going to take. You're kind of showing that okay, it's all that fiddle faddle. We're going to have Drake headlining. Even for the politics that have come out of this conversation that between this beef, it's like all that's out of the water now. Let Drake headline. And again, I'm not saying takes like you can
3 days as well.
Yeah.
I agree with you. It's not about whether you like Drake or not for me, because I'm, you know, it is it's the part where they said the man them for me. I just found that so rude, because we have some mega selling artists in this country. You know, they are global artists. Like you said, the music has transferred over to America. That's how big these people are, and they're not just big for nothing. They are actually super talented. You're trying to tell me out of all of those artists, there's not one whose name you could put on this. Not one. They should be headlining. It's 20. It should be. It should be a 20-year celebration of Black British talent. That's what it should be. And then if you want to feature the other people like Vibes and Burner and whoever it is and Drake, do that. But it should be headlined by British acts. British acts.
Wireless always sells out. It always does well.
Of course
There's
it
no
does.
need for all of that
It's
nonsense.
got no competition.
And then that's again, we're pawns of our own culture, and it's money making for the white people who control our culture. So it's a problem we've got universal problems here in America and the UK. So guys,
And one thing I will say,
go on.
sorry, I was just going to say, the one thing that you guys in America need to remember is Britain is the father of colonialism. Yeah. So if you don't think it's fuckeries here, no, there's fuckeries here.
it's awful here.
To another level.
I just think, like, also as well, like, I feel like the Americans, they definitely have more of an infrastructure that you could actually, as a Black person, near enough live your whole life not interacting with anyone but your community. You could buy Black and near enough almost anything. You can make $1 million in your Black community. Like, do you know what I mean? Maybe just in one state. You know, do you know what I mean? That can't happen here. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, we haven't been here that long to have those structured in place as well. So it's just like, it is about the unity thing, because those kind of TikTok essays, I can hate them. They just like, it's a way to humble you almost, do you know what I mean? It's a way to kind of say, like, to take away from you, to belittle you a little bit. And it's just like, no, but we're not even on your level in that sense. We're not even competing. We're not even competing with you. We can't.
There's a new generation of Black British pride, which is rebelling against the dominance of America. I grew up in where I always say I'm African American, everything. I inhaled everything Black American. I was in awe. The new generation, because they have this new sense of Black pride, Black British UK pride, I should say, there's a difference in their, what are you talking about? Who are you talking to? We've got our culture. We don't need you. So I think that's what they're also retaliating against as well. Because people are like, no, we're not kowtowing to you guys. We have our own presence as well.
Well, we remember the rappers who wouldn't speak, they wouldn't rap in an English.
Right now.
We had that.
We
because they
remember
wouldn't
that.
sell.
We do remember
Yeah, we're
that.
from a different time.
Even singing.
Like,
you know,
like, like,
That was all new. That is very much like a kind of 90s, late 90s going on, where people would show their Britishness when they're singing and rapping. So it is different, but I hate that they can't understand that. And then in our comments, the level of ignorance that people hit us with, like, British people are being so ignorant about their culture. It's like, guys, we've actually been fed a diet of your culture.
We know you inside. We pretty, and not to, we do. We know Black American culture a lot more than even our own. The history is American culture versus ours. There's so much stuff that we don't know that happened in the UK. We're
not taught to us.
Learning that
our history's been erased a lot in the UK.
And that's also the same for other countries, because like when TikTok went dark and like the Australian talk came, do you know what I mean? I was just like, they also talking about a similar thing, that they've been fed American culture their whole lives. So like, why are they not allowed to speak on things? Like, it's the same thing. Like, your culture has been exported all around the world.
The fact that I have Ghanaians saying the N-word,
commodity
blows my mind.